Well, this is truly the violent nature of the crime, and we've seen it a lot lately here. As you know, we just talked about Patrick Frazee. We also covered the case last year of Chris Watts, the killing of his kids. And here we have the case of Henry Segura. Did he kill his girlfriend, Brandy Peters, and murder his child and her children? Well, I have someone who is great to talk about this, and I know that doesn't sound right, but she knows what she's doing. That is forensic pathologist, board certified, Dr. Kelly Kruse, who is in Iowa. Hi, Dr. Kruse. Nice to see you today.
Great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you know, you came on at the right time. As you know, our viewers saw you in the Todd Mullis case, as we labeled it, the corn ray case, and you talked about going to scenes and seeing bodies and how a scene is important. In this case, you looked at what we have here, which is not everything the attorneys have in the NL, but you did see some of the pictures that we're not showing to our viewers. What, by the nature of the photos that you saw, can you tell us about the violent nature of this crime, and what does that imply to you as a forensic pathologist?
Looking at the photographs, so you could see that it was, in fact, a very, very violent crime. There was a significant amount of blood, kind of, essentially on the floor, on the walls, on the door, which tells me that there was potentially a struggle, or at least like these wounds were inflicted in a very, very violent way. In terms of the children, having them all be in the bathtub, filled with water on top of each other. I mean, really, it's a very heinous crime without any care for human life. And when they are this violent, you wonder what kind of personal vendetta there was against the person. Essentially, was it a crime of passion? So really, it truly was very, very violent crime.
Well, when you have a scene like this, though, with all the violence, with clearly, according to the crime scene reconstructionist, Brandy Peters, it started in the bedroom. She may have been shot 7 or 8 times. One of them may have been a reentry room, but she was killed by a brutal hit to the skull, where it caused the brain damage. Does that indicate to you 1 or 2 people? And we're going to be discussing this later on the show, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it before we even see the clips regarding it.
It's a great question, and it's really difficult to tell how many people or how many weapons are involved. You just wonder how easy it would be for someone to have a gun in their hand, to shoot the person, and then hit them with, I believe, listening to the testimony, they think she was hit with something other than a gun. That would be difficult. It's not impossible, but it does raise the question, were there multiple people?
And one other question I have to you, that she was shot 7 or 8 times. Again, one of them looks like it was a reentry room, but none of the wounds were fatal in terms of the shooting wounds, the gunshot wounds, but the hit to the head was. But would she be debilitated by the gunshot wounds that you saw that had been documented in the trial before she was even hit to the head? In other words, would she be able to really defend herself by the time the person came on her for the fatal blow?
Yeah, it's something we think about all the time, and we're often asked in court, what would have happened after a person was shot? And each person is unique. Someone can be actually shot through the heart, have a conversation with you, run down the street. So it's really difficult to tell. And in these like high adrenaline kind of situations, she potentially would be able to fight back and move around, but it's really hard to know. Just because everyone is so unique and every person and situation is so unique.
Well, Dr. Kruse, stay with us. We're going to now listen to some of the jury questions that they had from Michael Knox. He was the crime scene reconstructionist for the defense. So I think we read tea leaves, or we watched the trial, Bernarda Villalona. In your experience as a trial attorney, and you see a lot of defense attorneys, you've done prosecution in Philadelphia, but let me ask you this. The jury really honed in on a very important question here about whether it's 1 or 2 people. Why is that important?
Well, it's important because they're debating on whether Segura could have done it by himself or if he just didn't do it at all. Because given that there are 4 human beings that are actually killed, it's hard to fathom that one person is able to hold all 4 of them down with no one jumping in to try to help each other. So the jury's already thinking about there's no way that he could have done it by himself if he is the person that did it. So that forms some kind of doubt for them. But what I do like is that with these questions, you do get some insight of what the jury is thinking about, what's on their mind, what's causing them pause.
So Dr. Kruse, again, the young child, Mr. Segura's child, was drowned, and the other 2, the one girl was drowned, the other girl was shot, probably put in the bathtub. What does that indicate to you, since the drowning had to take time for the one child to be drowned and then the second child in the shot? What does that indicate to you as a forensic pathologist about whether there's 1 or 2 people?
It's a great question because it does. Just thinking about it practically, how easy is it? I mean, they're not babies. So to drown two children one at a time, when you're drowning the first one, the other two are potentially alive, that's really, really difficult. It's not necessarily impossible. And to me, as a forensic pathologist, I just know that they were drowned or they were shot, and that injury was inflicted by another person, and it was homicide. Ultimately, I don't have to make that decision, which makes things a little bit easier for me. But practically, it does seem difficult to injure all these people at once.
And Jason Friedman, going upon that, we now know that the jury has that as two of their questions for the crime scene reconstructionist, which is amazing because they didn't ask many questions in the trial. But listening to that now, with that question from the jury, and you have the DNA of Angel Avila Quinones, who says he wasn't even in the country, right, on the phone, according to what the defense says, and their DNA expert. How does that play into now the defense theory that there's two people, not one person, or three people, or four people, or five people?
It just clouding the issue, and that's all about what the reasonable doubt is. And so, the jury is obviously struggling. I think a lot of people are struggling to try to figure out, practically speaking, try to picture what that was going on at the time, and can one person actually do it? And it's really interesting. That's why allowing those jurors to ask the question really does give the insight, and as Bernard has said. But I think it's creating a cloudy situation for the prosecutor, and cloudy situations equals reasonable doubt.
So reasonable doubt. Wow. I tell you, thinking when you say you're picturing how the crime occurred, all I can see is a monstrous homicide, a murder of 4 different people. But I have to tell you something, and we told you we'd keep you apprised. In the Severs case, in Mark Severs, he will be tried soon. Hopefully tomorrow they'll be opening because the jury was selected as we were on the air today. The jury in the Mark Severs case was selected. We'll continue to follow that case along with whether or not there's a verdict in Henry Segura today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.